Hi, and welcome to FireTech Talk. I'm the host, Robert Bell, and I'm here with Jeff Terrey from Rasky Partners, and we're going to talk about FEMA, the Fire Equipment Manufacturers Association, and the GRC, which is a committee of FEMA called the Government Relations Committee. Jeff, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure, always a pleasure. Love working with you. So let's just dive right in. Jeff, remind us, what does FEMA and the GRC do, and how are you and Rasky Partners a part of that effort?
Thanks, Robert. So the Government Relations Committee is really one of the most important committees of FEMA. So FEMA, as everyone maybe knows, is the Fire Equipment Manufacturers Association. And the Government Relations Committee is a coalition of three companies. It's Brooks, Amerex, and Buckeye. And what everyone does is tries to work together to make sure that state fire codes, state legislation, and federal regulations are done in a way that require redundancy and protect portable extinguishers and extinguishing systems.
Excellent, excellent. Now, why should the average fire equipment distributor care about FEMA and the work that it does?
Sure, absolutely. So FEMA and the Government Relations Committee, we've been working for I think about 18 years. And during those 18 years, we have been successful in getting laws or regulations changed in more than 20 states. And in each one of those states, those regulation change have either protected the placement of extinguishers or done something about the requirement of extinguishers and extinguishing systems.
Awesome. We'll dive some more into that as we go. Tell us what companies make up the FEMA and GRC, and is there a relationship between FEMA, GRC, and NAFED?
So, good question. So, three companies, Amerex, Buckeye, and Brooks, and NAFED. So NAFED is a very important supporter of the Government Relations Committee, and together we work to try to make fire codes and state and federal legislation better.
Excellent, excellent. Now, from the standpoint of state fire codes, Jeff, most states now adopt the latest model fire codes from ICC and the FPA, as you know, and that require extinguishers throughout the building. Are there still a couple of holdout states?
Yeah.
And what's the latest thinking and kind of what's planned moving into 2022?
Yeah, good question. So there's three states that deviate significantly from the national model codes when it comes to portable extinguishers. Indiana, New Jersey, and Virginia.
Okay.
And working with NAFED, the FEMA GRC, are trying to take a look at those three states to see what we can do to change those regulations. Probably taking a look at Virginia first. It takes an awful lot of work, and it takes a lot of work from the GRC and the GRC members, but importantly, distributors. It's those distributors that are on the ground in Virginia or the other states who can really be important members to try to impact those the legislation and regulations.
Excellent, excellent work you're doing with those. All right, Jeff, the most recent NDAA, and that's the National Defense Authorization Act, passed in December 2021 and endorsed the use of NFPA 1 fire code for extinguishers throughout buildings for military facilities. What's planned for 2022 for the implementation of this new law? And more precisely, can you tell us how FEMA and GRC and Rasky Partners are going to get the DoD, the Department of Defense, to implement this and get extinguishers back into military bases?
Yeah, this is a really important issue.
Yes.
So, working with the members, we were able to discover, I think it was first Pease Air Force Base, when we first found out that extinguishers were not only not being required at that Air Force Base, but were actually being pulled out. Then we worked to discover that actually the Department of Defense was pulling them out of a number of military bases because the National Defense Authorization Act had been changed. So we worked closely with members of Congress who represent the three GRC member companies to try to get language, and we were successful to get language into the National Defense Authorization Act that requires the Department of Defense to adopt NFPA 1 for the treatment of portable extinguishers. So that was a really important step. President Biden signed it into law. Now we need to work closely with the Department of Defense to actually get it implemented. So we are again working with the GRC members, their representatives in Congress, to weigh into the Department of Defense. And then we're also working closely with a number of allies that we have within DoD and also within the White House to make sure that they actually do implement it. Getting the federal government to actually do something that's passed into law can strangely take a lot of time.
We found that out to be true, haven't we,
We
Jeff?
have, yeah,
So
absolutely.
I've gotten so much out of this conversation, Jeff. Unfortunately, we're out of time on this video.
Yep.
So go ahead and subscribe to the Brooks YouTube channel and check back for part 2 of this important video with Jeff Terrey from Rasky Partners.